So the movement of this trade taught me so much. It reinforced all the different ideas, including keeping it simple. So in a nutshell, on the 1 hour, if we look at the 1 hour and look at the 5 minutes as I draw this, it's basically just indication, correction, indication, correction, indication, with a nice 1 hour virgin wick. And if we just make this all intervals, we see that the 5 minute really just goes boom, 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 and more. So yesterday, by the time I did start looking at it, it was already here. And then along the way, as it was coming back up, let's actually do this. Using the cursor here and the line here saying that this is still down. So this is still a good indication, even though it looked like it was rejecting. And so once it rejected, I was actually looking at this as an indication. So this black line was actually more drawn like this as a POI, just like this. And so when I was looking at it, it was already past this part. It never closed above and then closed below this 5 minute POI that I was looking at. And plus the fact that I just wasn't on the charts right at this point, but there was no proper close above, close below type of entry, and we know those can save you. So it makes this 5 minute indication, correction, and indication again, and it is a lower low. So then now we're in the correcting part, but we're still looking at this down move. This down move is still having the proper thought of this being an indication. If this and this is one indication, then really it's on the 1 hour indication. So yeah, like this indication is this indication here. You can even see it in the gray arrow. So as it came up, this point becomes also a indication for the 1 hour. So basically this is the 1 hour, not indication, but yeah, 1 hour indication with this 1 hour POI right there. So keep this 1 hour POI in mind. And that's what this attempt was here, right here. So that's the 1 hour POI, which is true, higher than the previous POI we just drew that didn't have the close above. This is the 15-second chart. So I was looking and I was seeing if there's any way we came up and we actually did have some inverted fair value gaps here, but I didn't get into this trade because it started to look like this is not the most ideal setup. And then I looked at this point here, right there, and that became a liquidity idea that I'd imagined if it didn't turn at this 1 hour POI, we were already so close to this liquidity sweep that we might turtle soup it. And look at that, good spot for turtle soup, liquidity sweep, judas swing right there. It came up to this liquidity, which is labeled LS right there, And it did that and went down. And I wasn't looking at the chart right here, but then, so I didn't take this one, and I theorized that there will be some liquidity grab, and the liquidity grab happened here when I wasn't in front of the charts. So then I'm figuring, okay, I mean, this is the perfect judas swing, and so there's going to be some swing that I could look for as indication. So now on the 5-minute, this is what I did, and this was my trade, except I didn't manage it very well. I entered here on a pullback. So after the liquidity sweep, see how it's labeled LS? That's the liquidity sweep of this high right there, which when it was this close, it just decided to come up and grab it. And here is sort of a wyckofff, AMD, accumulation and manipulation. AMD, this is the A of the AMD, accumulation, manipulate for this liquidity sweep, and then boom, up, and then another sort of, well, no, this isn't quite this little one right here, this little not perfect accumulation, decide to push up and then decide to come down and sweep this low as a springboard for the wyckofff. So another wyckofff here, AMD, accumulation, not perfect, manipulate, and then boom, the distribution came up and swept this liquidity, which is amazing how market just does that so predictably, and then make this judas swing right here. This is the anatomy of the judas swing on the 15-second, and then it just does the judas swing right down here. And then I was trying to see if there's any way to get in here, and I took this and I drew it, and this would have been, and I was faced with adverse selection in that I demanded that price be so good that I actually missed this trade. And then when it came down to here, I decided to look. So I was kind of distraught about that. I was like, there I go again with the adverse selection. And so then when it came down here, I decided to look at the 5 minutes CCT type of idea. So right here, here's a 5-minute swing. So let's take this away and let's show you by drawing it out that this is an indication. And here's the 5-minute swing right there. See this gray line? That's pointing at this. So let's draw that. See this 5-minute candle right there. That 5-minute candle with a 5-minute, and even this one here. So this 5-minute CCT candle triad, or CCT candles with this closure and this virgin wick coming through as POI. So up here, this swing right there is this virgin wick right there. And this swing. So I actually took it over here and I gave myself enough wide of a margin. I guess I actually had this as a 5-minute POI right there coming across, and it was doing this. So I just got in on a pullback, and I gave myself enough of a space to know that this point of interest would be a point of interest, would be serving as previous support turned resistance right there. And then it does all of this, and really it actually took me out for really low price. I only made very little on this entire move. Because of this, I moved to stop break even. All right, so very simply, it's just this indication. As by this indication comes up for the correction, and this is the liquidity grab, liquidity sweep that's labeled down here, like this thing here. Liquidity grab comes up, judas swing, indication, correction, and then indication again comes up, 5-minute closure, 5-minute virgin wick, 5-minute point interest, 5-minute point interest, or could also be considered maybe a 1-hour point interest maybe. And so it comes up, and that's what this right there is where my entry was. And then I moved my stop and then got stopped out for like $8. But interestingly, only half of the 10 got taken out, so 5 actually ran. And then I moved my stop like this down to here. I figured if it came down to here, it would just continue. But look at this. This line right there is actually coming into play right there. And it became a very contentious point. And that's what that black line was down there. I did this like this. I drew it like this, and so actually I drew it like this, and this POI here is this thing on the 1 hour. And basically it's a smokey pooski kind of line, where above this line it's going long, and below this line finally it doesn't get below until here. See that? On the 5-minute, it's pretty clear that this is the line. Look at this right there. Initially, the one that didn't close above, that was based on this swing here. So I'm gonna actually take away with this black line and just use this POI on the 1 hour that I respected it here. And then this became actually support, previous resistance. This is previous support becoming resistance. This previous resistance now becoming support. And that's what took me out. Here's my initial entry. It's very clear. Here's my initial entry along here on the 5-minute. As you can see, let's do it with the crosshair. So see the crosshair right here, and it comes up, and this is where it took me out for. Oh, actually it's here. All right, so it's actually this right here, and I actually traded this and followed the crosshair on both charts, on the 5-minute and on the 15-second. This swing, we came down and we came all the way here, but I was taken out for break even here. So basically I entered here, it came up, did not stop me out, so I entered here, and you can follow the 5-minute crossbar. It's over here. So I entered here, it came down, it didn't stop me out here, and I rode it here And once it came down to here, I moved my stop to here, and I got half taken out, which was an interesting experience. I should remember that as a very distinct experience. I moved my stop, and I got stopped out on half of them, and the other half actually still went, followed the crosshair, and then with the black line, I figured if it came down to here, if it exceeded this low right here, that it would go to here. So I didn't take my profit. I moved my take profit down here, and then it all the way retraced right to this line of previous support. Where is this? Okay, right here. Previous resistance now becomes support, and it bounces up. And actually, by this time I had moved my stop here. So when it got to here, I moved my stop to break even here, and then it moved, and it took half out. And then when it got to here, I moved my stop to here, and that's what those $88 was. Those $88 was this, and it took me out. So really, this line is very much an up and down line. Previous support becomes resistance, previous resistance becomes support, and it bounces up and it takes me out, and then it goes down to here. Like this. And then it wasn't until much later that it does this. So it just needed to take its time, because it's really a 1 hour type of deal that we're dealing with, in addition to the 5 minute and the 15-second type of thing. But in the big picture, this is just the indication, correction, and then down. But all this in between had this line right here. That's the up and down line. Like previous support, previous resistance. It started out this way with this, and then it went here, and it still respected it here before finally breaking down here. And this is actually a liquidity sweep. This is actually some sort of a Judas swing right here, when we accumulated, or when the charts accumulated and then went down, grabbed this liquidity, respecting this up and down line, goes up, grabs this liquidity using this accumulation. So it's a double Wyckofff, and then finally comes down like crazy. Finally, it was ready to move after all of this in between. So very interesting trade, very interesting how the market moves. It pretty much had everything. It had this huge 1 hour perspective, and then where I was looking at it, it had this move, and then I was looking at this 1 hour type on the 5 minute, using 5 minute swings and the 1 hour CCT framework. So over here, right here. And then I didn't go down here. I did not enter this one, this theorized trade, because I saw the liquidity grab up here, this one. And so I let it grab the liquidity, and I wasn't watching the charts exactly here with the judas swings, but I recognized it. And then I wanted to enter here, but got an adverse selection. And then it came down, and I did enter, and then moved my stop too early, got to break even on half, got taken out on the other half, wrote it down, moved my target lower when this original target would have been just a beautiful trade here. And so when it came down to here and it did not exceed this, it bounced up with a AMD type of situation. You can see it on the 5-minute AMD accumulation, manipulation, and then bam, comes up to grab this liquidity, making this also a double-sided Wyckoff. Grab this liquidity up here. See, that's higher. It's higher. And then the real move. But on the 15-second, it's all this stuff. So that's the reason you take a modest target on the 15-second, because just even by moving the break even or moving the take profit to here, I got taken out over here with $88. It's very memorable trade. A lot of lessons here. So that's why this video is kind of long. And then finally, after the double-sided AMD, then we finally go down. But I was asleep and I was taken out with the $88 on half of them.